certain words like that, right? N word, also like the R word. I'm sure all of you guys are familiar with that word, but what is something that you see that has made you really think about these things? And I'll let you kick it off from there because I have my views, but I want to kick it off to you. Like, what are you seeing?
So what sparked this conversation was a conversation we had off air a few months ago when Alex was still healthy enough. Alex was like I guess he does your audio and Alex, you're listening. We love you, buddy. But then before he got injured, and we were talking about, I asked a serious questions. I have a lot of Black friends as well too that we went to high school with, and I posed this question a little bit later.
Also went to college with a few friends, right?
Yeah. So I have a lot of Black friends, and it was a question I asked off air, and I forget, it was something you guys were listening to because in between podcasts, you guys put on, we got the skull here, we got the music you listen to, and I asked, I think Alex, I said, hey, like, so this song has the N word in it. Am I allowed to use that N word if I'm singing along? He's like, absolutely not. And I'm like, but I don't understand. And I'm like, it's in the song. Why can't I sing along? He goes, we're allowed to use it, but you're not allowed. And I was like, that's funny. Like, it's a word. First of all, I never understood. And I brought this question to we have a closed group chat with my graduating class too. We had a discussion about this too. This is what sparked it. Right. And I said, well, why? Why is it that certain people, it's supposed to be a negative word on your culture, right?
It is.
And I don't care what you say that it's supposed to be, oh, we're lifting each other up, we're using it endearing. That word has very negative connotations to it. It's a very negative word. So either none of us should be like, I don't understand how you use it. You're allowed to use it. If it's part of the English language, where if I say it and I can say it in the same tone and it's negative, how is it by you saying it in the same tone or in the same song makes it any different? So I've to this day choose not to. Like, there's a Biggie song I like a lot of them use the N word. With my kids in the car, I turn off the song. I don't even like the word anymore. And it actually makes me hate the song. When you're younger, you don't think about it. But now that I'm like thinking about it more and more, I don't want to hear that stuff. If I'm not allowed to use that word, even sing along with it, I'm not going to like the song anymore. Right. And it's funny because I said, well, think of it this way. And we have Thomas that was here, who's has Down syndrome. And he told me how much the R word hurt. So, and I'm not going to say the word because he used it one time. I said, please don't use that word. We'll call it the R word. And it's funny because that R word is used as a negative word towards them. And it's like, they don't even use it within themselves. Like, the Down syndrome community doesn't use it. But if they start using it, like, it's funny because it's still a negative thing. So how is the N word different than the R word?
And this is where it gets interesting because I've grown up with two upbringings. One was back in Kenya, where if you really look at it, Kenya, you're growing within like a Kenyan culture. We have the food, we have the language, we have a way of life. So when I came to Canada in 2003, I got to see the best of both worlds. When I actually came here, that's when I was actually labeled the term African American. And I'm like, what the hell does that mean? Right? Because first of all, I'm not American, I'm African. And being part of this continent, I'm from Kenya. So my identity was being stripped away from me and now being added onto this, monolithic group of just Black people who are just labeled African American because you live in Canada or the US. So I was a little bit confused, and I went back to my parents and I was telling my mom, I was like, yeah, like, this thing, African American thing, like, what, are we American now? I thought we're from Kenya. And at this time, DC, I'm learning English, right? So my English is a little bit choppy, even though English is our second language back in Kenya.
I was going to say, I thought you guys grew up with mostly.
Because it was a British colony,
right.
But, we speak Swahili like through and throughout. And this time I'm like 8 years old, about to turn 9 years old. And now I'm learning this African American term. So I kind of found that weird. So as the years go by, right, you start being assimilated within the Canadian way of living and how people are actually viewing just Black people in general. Grade 3, grade 4, you start learning about African American history. You start learning about Martin Luther King. You start learning about like all these like historical figures who really helped, the Black race advance forward, specifically from what they were dealing with back in like the 1900s with slavery, Jim Crow, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. When I was about 10, 11 years old, that's when I started really listening into like hip hop and everything like that, right? Because with the emergence of like MP3 players, CD players, right? I can actually see it. So I used to see these music videos back home, but you don't really see the N-word being used in the music videos because it's censored over the airwaves, right? They're not going to play it. So when I got here after grade 3, I had a disc player. So back in the day, everyone, I'm sure whoever, if you're David's audience, you definitely use like a CD player, a Discman, as we used to call it, or you have like the tapes in it and you can play it.
So yeah, when I started listening to like the hardcore, like NWA, which has the N word in it, yeah, and Two Live Crew, and Run DMC and stuff too. Yeah, we listened to Walkmans.
Yeah,
with cassettes.
With cassettes, right? With cassettes.
Yeah, my good friend Chris Grant would always get all the Two Live Crew stuff, and I would take it and we'd record them and then listen to it. I had all the NWA. NWA was the best, like straight out of Compton. Like now I feel like, listen, I can't even put that music too loud. I'm like, what the hell? But back I was like 10. I was like, maybe 11, 12 or something. Listening, I'm like N-word left and right.
N-word everything, right?
Yeah.
So I start hearing this word. I'm like, okay, like, what is it? What is it? And
you didn't know what the N-word was? I guess. Yeah, it makes sense.
I'm great. I'm like young. I'm like 9 years old, right? And I've been sheltered and I lived in a country where everyone's black. So I grew up just knowing you're the same way you'd go in Italy, right? You don't go like, oh yeah, you're white. No, you're Italian.
Yeah.
So
they call us, I guess the negative word they would call us was WAP, but nobody WAP, which means without papers. So that used to be a negative thing, but it's nowhere near the N word. But yeah, you wouldn't go to Italy and call somebody a WAP.
Yeah. So like pretty much exactly that. Like the whole Italian thing is your FOB, you're fresh off the boat.
That's more of an Asian thing.
It's an Asian thing?
Yeah, it's a fob. Fobs are fresh off the boat is more of an Asian thing.
Yeah.
And when they do this, they do too much like a fob with the V symbol. Yeah, like, oh, you're such a fob. I heard
you're such a fob, man. Yeah. So
we were WAPs, WOP.
Okay. But to get to what I was trying to say, right, is that when I was actually on the playground during recess, so this is like my first year in Canada. So now I'm seeing all the other kids who are black from like Jamaica, Caribbean, just a variety of different places. They've grown up here. And they'll start addressing each other with that word. And they come out to be like, yo, Owen, my N-word. I'm like, I was like, what? What the hell? Like, right? And I'm like, all right. So then I hear it again. And then one time I remember my boy, out for this sake of conversation, I'll say it's Johnny. Johnny, there's another kid he wasn't white, but he was Pakistani, and he used it. He said it to Johnny. And then Johnny gets pissed, like, yo, you can't say that, So this was my first exposure in actually understanding that this word is actually sacred to only black people. Yeah. Right. So it almost caused a fight, but the teacher got in the way during recess and stopped the whole thing.
But that's the funny thing. Do you consider it sacred?
So as I get older, do you see, I'm starting to learn. So grade seven and is when I actually started, my brain is actually is expanding. I'm learning more and more about myself and history and black history. I'm learning what this word meant and why it's only sacred to black people for them to use. Is because black people in general went through so much hardships that this word was used to put them down, that as a way to revenge and revolt against what happened to them, they're utilizing the word as a way to actually put some positive spin to it.
And I think that's a false narrative.
It's a false narrative.
It's a false narrative.
Because imagine people who, in my opinion, who grew up around that time, who were treated, degraded, horribly.
Absolutely.
And they're being put in this low status because, it's a word that wreaks havoc, right? And now they come back and they see the way that we're using it. Like, in my opinion, if they came back and saw the way we're using it, they'll be like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Are you for real? Like, do you know what they did to us back in the day? And you're using this as a word of endearment, some sort of thing. It just doesn't really sit well with me.
So which made me start to question about this. Is like, that's why I say it's a false narrative. I think it's a way to continue to enslave you mentally.
Yeah.
And because to let you know you're still not, like, we'll give you this norm, like we'll let you guys think and call each other this because maybe subconsciously, maybe like you're still enslaved by the white man in that kind of sense. That's kind of how I take on it too.